Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be doing short reviews of a handful of fragrances that I've been wearing and testing over the week and writing notes on. There's a kind of a little bit of a mixture here, so we'll dive in with the first one. The first one is an indie brand from Thailand. They're called Siam 1928, and I purchased a handful of samples from their website. We are first going to talk about this one. It's called Nari Vimala. It's an eau de parfum concentration. The notes for this one include banana leaf, orris and rice, with banana, coconut milk, vanilla and jasmine, powder, paper, sandalwood and caramel. I'm just going to spray on paper just to remind myself. Obviously I've been wearing it on skin. This is a really nice top note. It's quite interesting, the texture. The rice note kind of makes sense when you smell it. You kind of think to yourself maybe something like a white steamed boiled kind of sticky rice, a white sticky rice. That little bit of a little bit of that in this. It's not overly strong on the banana element. I would say it's not hugely reminding me too much of banana. The idea of coconut milk kind of makes a little bit of sense, but also it doesn't really particularly smell of coconut to me. When I read the notes and I hear things like powder and paper, that kind of makes sense. There is something about it that smells a little bit dusty, a little bit like an old book smell. In a way, kind of reminding me of Imaginary Author's Memoirs of a Trespasser, in terms of that kind of dusty, kind of slightly sweet paper kind of smell. There was elements to this where I was thinking to myself, I wonder if they used a little bit of coconut aldehyde, because there is a slightly kind of waxy element to it. The texture is very, very smooth. In my notes I wrote that after about 2 hours, it's almost a little bit rubbery. Imagine a little bit like a rubber or very smooth plastic. I think the soft kind of sandalwoody notes and these kind of these stranger chords like paper and powder and these kinds of things, that's kind of what you get as it starts to dry down. This sort of very smooth, slightly dusty, slightly rubbery, very smooth texture to the dry down. I would describe this as being very unisex. It doesn't scream masculine or feminine to me. It smells like a spring, autumn, winter fragrance. A little bit more casual. It's not something you probably wear dressed up, but casual, relaxed. Daytime or nighttime. But yeah, more chilled out, kind of casual. It's nice. I quite like this one. I enjoyed wearing it. The sweetness is not too much. It's kind of a subtle sweetness. If anything, I would say it would be like a green banana rather than an overly ripe, ready to eat banana. This is like green still on the tree kind of thing. But it's interesting. I think it's quite nice. I think the bottle is beautiful. It's made of porcelain. This is a nice option that I would definitely suggest trying first. If you like things like Memoirs of a Trespasser, this is different. But if you like that kind of dusty, dry, kind of papery kind of feel that has, a little vanilla kind of touch, this one is like a twist on that kind of vibe, I would say. But with these, again, slightly more fruitier, more unusual aspects to this one. In terms of performance for this, on my skin, I would say around 5 hours, maybe about 6 as a soft, gentle kind of skin scent. But generally speaking, about 5 hours for this. Next up, we're going to be talking about Amouage, and this is Guidance by Amouage, the original Guidance, not Guidance 46. So the notes for this include pear, hazelnut and frankincense with osmanthus, rose and saffron, jasmine, sandalwood, vanilla, akigala wood, ambergris and labdanum. I actually find this one a little bit unusual and difficult to describe. It's quite pretty, it's quite feminine, it's got a gentle kind of fruity touch. The pear isn't too obvious, it's not in your face with a strong synthetic pear or anything like that. It's quite mild, I would say. But it does come across like a slightly powdery, fruity floral that's not too sweet, that has a nice mix of florals. It's interesting. The blending is very, very smooth. This hazelnut accord, this smooth kind of darker, nutty-like element to it, for me is quite nice. I think it adds a little bit, maybe, I don't know whether the word is sophisticated, but something a bit more grown up maybe to it, rather than it's not too youthful or playful. It's got a slight bit more maturity to it. I'm usually not a huge fan of Osmanthus, but the way that it's done in this is actually really good. I genuinely like this one. There are certain elements to this where I'm kind of reminded a little bit of Heliotrope, which is this kind of slightly powdery Play-Doh, sweet vanilla kind of tone, a little bit irisy. This has something along those lines, although Heliotrope isn't listed, but kind of a little bit of a vibe that I get from this. I've never smelled Akigala wood by itself as a raw material, so I've no idea what it smells like individually. It's meant to be a kind of peppery wood kind of profile that is derived from patchouli. I guess you do get a slight woodiness in this in the base, but this floral kind of component that it has, a slightly sweet floral, slightly powdery, is very, very long lasting. I smell it, in the top notes, and I also smell it at the very end of the dry down. It's the longest lasting, quite linear accord that's very, very persisting. So we'll get into the performance for this. Firstly, I'll say the projection in sillage is absolutely huge, enormous. It fills up a room, and if you walk out of the room and go back into the room 20 minutes later, it's just hanging in the air. It's quite spectacular in terms of the way it wafts around and floats in the air and just stays there. So performance is extreme, I would say. Longevity, 12 hours. I mean, it's very, very long lasting on my skin. Huge performance. So it's definitely, in my opinion, quite a room filler. To be honest, that could be a little bit of a negative. I would say maybe only spray it once. Don't overdo it, because I think this would be a little bit too much if it's oversprayed. For me, I can see this on someone in their early 30s up to like mid 60s. I think it's quite versatile in the age. It doesn't smell like a teenager fragrance. It is a little bit more mature, slightly more adult. For me, this comes across that quite versatile in the sense that it could be very professional, but also quite casual. If you were wearing like a light summer dress going out for the day, but also if you were like the boss or CEO of a massive company and you're wearing something, more professional, you could also wear something like this. It's got a chic kind of vibe to it that could be sophisticated at the same time. It can be kind of casual. So I think it works well in terms of you could pull it off most occasions. I kind of all season. It might be cloying in the summer just because of how potent this thing is, that it just goes everywhere. But it's not too inherently sweet that it might be sickly in the heat. So maybe if you spread it a little bit lighter, it could work in the summer too, but definitely for spring, autumn, winter. For me, this is one of my favorites for the women. And if I had a girlfriend, something like this, if she liked it, of course, I would quite happily buy her as a gift. The next one is by Francesca Bianchi. It's called Lover's Tale. The notes for this one include bergamot, honey, and mimosa, with jasmine, rose, and peach, aldehyde, and iris, heliotrope, leather, castoreum, labdanum, sandalwood, vetiver, and oak moss. The very first reaction to this was, wow, that's very potent on the leather. I got a massive blast of leather as a top note. But it kind of quickly chills out on the skin and actually becomes much more balanced once it's on the skin. On a paper test strip, all I could smell is leather. It's like super, super strong on the leather. The initial blast is leather, but then on skin, it does, breathe a little bit, and you get these other notes coming through. You definitely get a kind of powdery-like floral combination. I pick up on the orris and the heliotrope. You get this nice, sweet kind of powdery floral. I get a slight, almost waxy-like peach. Maybe it's a peach aldehyde, possibly. That's the impression that it comes across, that it's more like a peach aldehyde, I would say. I'm presuming she used peach aldehyde. Both peach and aldehyde are listed in the notes, but not together. I'm presuming it's actually peach aldehyde. It does give this waxy, smooth, fruity kind of tone, which actually works quite well with the leather. The jasmine on my skin was not indolic, not overly strong even. I think balanced with this mimosa and the iris and the heliotrope, it's all kind of mixing together to create this soft, pretty like white floral kind of component to the fragrance. After about 3 to 4 hours, I would say the dry down on me is going into the leather note with a little bit of amber, just a little bit of amber. And as it dries down even further, what I'm left with is the singular leather note that's used. The honey isn't overused, it's very subtle. It only provides a hint of a sweetness that's slightly animalic, but it's not overly done at all. It's a very light, kind of light hand. In terms of performance for this, the first half an hour is huge on projection and sillage because the leather note is very volatile. It just throws itself everywhere. After about 2 to 3 hours, it is sitting more as a skin scent, more intimate on me. And that leather note, I would say 4 to 5 hours, you're in the dry down of more just smelling a little bit like leather and amber. And then it kind of fades out into the leather note. And then that leather note persists and goes on and on and on. I would say the longevity, even with washing your hand and having a shower, is about 48 hours. So we're talking 2 full days of being able to smell the synthetic leather combination, leather and castoreum. Castoreum smells like leather from the beaver. She's probably using a synthetic castoreum. Most people do. It might be real, but most people tend to use a synthetic. But yeah, this leather note that you get is the longest lasting. You're talking 2 days on your skin smelling of leather. For me, it's not something that I would wear myself personally. In the air, it smells quite nice. I actually don't find it too animalic or punchy. When I first smelled it on the paper test strip, I thought, whoa, this is a bit crazy, a bit, lively, like just a bit intense. But actually, when you wear it on skin, it kind of chills out kind of quickly. That leather blast that blows you in the face immediately. It doesn't last very long. It settles down. You get a nice soft mix of powdery like florals, and then it dries down to a kind of a smooth ambery leather. And then the dry down of the leather is fairly smooth. It's not particularly overly animalic. So I actually found it fairly easy to wear. I would say it's quite unisex, man or woman, no problem. Definitely colder weather. It does come across more casual. It's not something you're going to want to wear to some kind of professional occasion, so to speak. It's casual. It's for your own enjoyment. It's a little bit more of a niche taste. Not everyone is going to find this kind of thing attractive. Some people will love it. Some people won't like it. It's maybe a little bit polarizing in the note choice. Leather, I think, in particular, is a little bit polarizing for people. People describe this as being very sensual, sexy, erotic. I actually didn't find that personally. At least on my skin, I didn't find it a particularly sexy kind of smell. It's pleasant, like it's nice. I quite like the smell, but I wouldn't have described it in my words as a sexy smell personally. But then it depends who's wearing it. If a partner's wearing it that you're very attracted to and you have a lot of chemistry, then obviously it's going to become a lot more sexy because you've got that chemical connection with someone. But as a smell by itself, I wouldn't have said that. Definitely one you need to try a sample of. I don't think it's a safe blind buy. Try a sample if you like leather fragrances with a bit of a punch and maybe some floral nuances. Might be one you want to check out. Going back again to Siam 1928. This one is called Chappaya Putta. Sorry if I can't pronounce these names. Apologies. But the notes for this are kaffir lime, petitgrain, rain notes with ginger, mud, musk, and patchouli. So what I get from this initially, you definitely get the lime and you definitely get the petitgrain. So you get this, sour, citrusy lime with this slightly bitter green leaf of the petitgrain. So it's green, it's bitter, it's got a bite to it. That lime gives it a nice kind of fresh quality to it. But it's also got this slightly Dirty is the wrong word. I think they've used the word mud in the note list. That kind of makes sense when you smell it, but there is something in the back that you perceive that kind of makes sense when you smell it, and you go, oh yeah, kind of. There is a slight quality of like a watery component to this, almost like a watery, musky kind of quality. But then it has things like rain notes listed. Whether or not that's just a little bit of something like cologne. But you do get a little bit of that mixing in with these kind of green notes. It settles down quite quickly on my skin. Within 2 hours, what I'm getting really is a kind of clean kind of musk with things that will remind you a little bit of things like Isoe Super, those kind of woody musk molecules. You get a little bit of that kind of vibe with this more cleaner kind of musk note. Again, the petitgrain, the green leafy kind of bitter quality is still lingering at that point. The patchouli note in this is nuanced, but I think it does help give a little bit more of a dark, earthy, greener texture to the base as it dries down. There's elements to this that actually reminded me a little bit of French Riviera by Mancera. So if you like the Mancera, you might also like this one. In terms of performance for this, it's a little bit short-lived. The projection and sillage did seem to sit closer on the skin, and the longevity was about 4 hours, maybe 4 to 5 hours. So a little bit shorter lived, but quite nice. I think that combination of lime and petitgrain is really good. To me, it comes off very unisex, and I would say it's a summer-spring fragrance. Spring is ideal. A little bit more casual, daytime or nighttime, but definitely kind of spring, summer. The last fragrance we're going to talk about today is by Creed, and this is called Queen of Silk. And the notes for Queen of Silk include saffron, osmanthus, and magnolia, with passion fruit, tuberose, and patchouli, oud, ambroxan, and vanilla, with myrrh, musk, cedar, and incense. So this is very, very potent when you first apply it to the skin. I mean, it's super strong. It's definitely a room filler, I would say. It's got a thick, sweet, syrupy-like texture smell to it. It's like a thick, sticky syrup. I found it a little bit abrasive. The oud seems to cut through it in a way that's not smooth. It's like this harsh kind of contrast between this syrupy, sweet thing, this mix of florals that are trying to come through that syrupy sweetness, and this oud note is punching this dark, woody quality through that, which seems to, in my opinion, kind of clash, and it smells a little bit disjointed, not quite harmonious or smooth. It smells a little bit messy, I would say, actually. There's something going on as it starts to dry down that smells a little bit like plastic, or like Play-Doh, or like Play-Doh in a plastic tub. There's some synthetic-y, plasticky smell to it that is not particularly attractive. As it dries down after the first hour, you're going to get a little bit of that tuberose coming through, this thick white floral with, again, this syrupy sweetness, a fruity, dark, syrupy sweetness, again, this kind of Play-Doh-y plastic kind of vibe. There is something about this that I personally find kind of cloying. When I smell it too much, I get tired of it, fatigued of it. I didn't enjoy this one. As it dries down, it gets quite big on the ambroxan and that kind of sweetness still. And what I get from the far dry down is basically ambroxan with kind of white musk and vanilla. Kind of a little bit boring or predictable dry down, I would say. Not the best quality. It's kind of a chaotic fragrance. It goes... I find it a little bit chaotic, and it's not something that I would go out of my way to recommend to the ladies. I was not attracted to this. To be honest, if a woman was wearing this around me, I'd probably take a couple of steps further back, because it's too much for me, this one. In terms of performance, it's very strong. The projection and sillage is quite huge, and in terms of overall longevity, over 12 hours, it's very, very, very long lasting. It's not my personal taste. I can't really recommend this one. I just don't like it, to be honest. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed these little kind of more condensed reviews. I'm just testing out a bunch of different fragrances through the week and writing notes and kind of trying to compile them for you at the end of the week. So that's kind of the idea behind these. Hope you enjoyed it. If you tried any of these, please let me know. And if there's anything you would like me to review in the future, please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. I'll see you again with another video. Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Old man Harlem gives me Sunday headache, but that old man Harlem keeps me rolling.